Alright, so welcome to Revit 2019 Demo 13. To get started, we're going to continue like we have on all subsequent lectures off of Demo 12, so the previous demo. Once I'm in here, we're going to be going over details in Revit. So we will create a building section followed by a wall section callout, then a footing detail from the wall section. So to begin, we're going to start with floor plan level 1. We're going to go up to View, Section, and I want to make sure that I'm creating a building section. And so what I'm going to do from the building section is I'm going to draw horizontally across the building. And I want my cut plane to be approximately 2 feet. There's no exact set distance here right now, but I'm going to just eyeball it at roughly 2 feet. I can set my far clip offset to 2 feet, so I could actually hit enter there, and it'll adjust it to be exact. Now, once that's set, I want to set this to 1/4 inch equals a foot. And then when I double click the header and head in, I've now got my wall section. So we're going to start this lecture by doing a smart wall creation continued. So before we start, we want to create some smart walls out of the east elevation walls. So I'm going to go to level 1 and I'm going to select this wall and edit the type and duplicate it. Before I duplicate it, I want to note that I have my preview expanded. So when you first open it, you'll probably have it like this. You'll hit preview and it'll show the structure of that wall. We're going to duplicate this one and call it Gallatin, in all caps, Gallatin 1 stucco VR1 /2 ply 5.5 core 5 /8 gyp. We're going to hit OK. And then in there, we're going to hit edit structure. Once we're in the structure, we want to format this to fit the boundaries of what's on page 101 and 102 out of the Gallatin College Revit book. So what that's going to do is essentially number 1 is going to be finish 2. Number 2 is going to be membrane layer. Number 3 we can delete because we don't need 2 membrane layers. Number 3 is going to be substrate 2. Number 4 is core boundary, that's always in there. Number 5 is structure 1. Number 6 is core boundary. Number 7 can be deleted. And number 7, which was previously number 8 or 9, depending on how you're looking at this, is now going to be finish 1. So then we want to make sure our material is correct. So I'm going to hit this ... It's going to open up this view. If you don't see this panel below, you can hit this above so it shows and hides the library panel. And we're going to be working mostly out of these AEC materials. So in here, if I hit AEC materials, this is going to show every single one. And then I want to scroll down and find stucco. So RS, past it, stucco. Let's see if I can find stucco. I'm actually not finding it. So it might be wall, there it is, wall texture stucco. And then in here I'm going to select that value and I want to add material to document and display in editor. So now I have wall texture stucco, and now in here you can see that I have that texture of stucco. Now I'm going to hit apply and OK, and now I have wall texture stucco. I'm going to set the thickness to 1 inch. I want to go through and set this to be vapor retarder, and if I hit enter, it will automatically put that in there if it exists, and it does exist. In here, if I put wood sheathing plywood, it's probably going to give me an error because it's not a valid material at this point in time. So in order to make it a valid material, what we can do is we can come into here and we can go to wood, and we'll look for plywood sheathing. So we have wood, sheathing, plywood. We're going to go ahead and load this in. It's in there, so we're going to replace it, but I want to rename this to be wood plywood sheathing. And we'll delete the comma. We don't need the comma. Hit enter, hit apply, hit OK. It says enter a valid material. We did. Going in here, wood plywood sheathing, it's there. It was just left up from the last error. The retarder is going to be set to 0, and then the plywood sheathing is going to be set to a 1/2 inch. This core boundary will be 0. The interior wall structure, which is going to be a wood stud layer. So in here, we'll go to wood stud layer. Let's look under wood and see if we have wood stud layer. Wood stud layer, we don't, but I could use wood, so I could load this in, rename it, call it wood stud layer, hit apply, hit OK. We don't want it to be 5'6", we want it to be 5.5 inches. Core boundary 6 is going to be 0, and then finish 1 is going to be gypsum wallboard, which is in there already at 5/8 inch. And from there, the wall should be at 7 5/8. The lecture handout says 8 5/8. That's a typo or an error. It should be 7 5/8. So the stud layer is set. It says to set it to timber C24. So what we're going to do is go down to wood and look for timber C24. I'm going to load that in as timber C24, hit apply, OK, and now that stud layer is set to C24. So clapboard, assign wood siding clapboard, up arrow. Double click on picture, set color to purple, and set pattern to model pattern 4-inch parallel. Now for clapboard, I don't see that in this particular layout. So looking at the material editor, we would set our siding to clapboard. So finish 2 is going to change. I know we just created stucco, but that's a good thing because we have it now. Now what we want to look for is, I believe, wood siding clapboard. So wood siding clapboard, there it is. We're going to push that out to the material browser. In here, we're going to double click on the picture, and that is now set to siding clapboard. It wants the color to be purple. So in here, we can actually set the surface pattern or this value to be purple. So we're going to set it to 128.0.128. 128.0.128. Hit OK. Hit apply. Hit OK. So now you'll see that that value is set to purple. We want a 4-inch parallel pattern, so double clicking this again, hitting the foreground pattern. This foreground pattern's changed since previous values. So what we want is horizontal, and we can duplicate this and call it 4-inch horizontal. And then your line spacing, we could say 4-inch, which isn't going to actually be correct because the scale's set 1:1, but we'll see what happens here. Hit OK. 4-inch parallel is what we want. So I didn't see parallel in this list, so I named this incorrectly. So we're going to edit it and call it 4-inch parallel. Don't add an extra R like I just did. Hit OK. Hit OK, hit apply, hit OK. Now that's in there. And we are going to make sure that this is checked. That must stay checked. And then we're going to hit OK and OK. And now we've created that wall type. And you'll notice that that value's changed here. Now if I turn thin lines on, I can kind of see that wall material. That's exactly what I wanted. So if I turn that thin lines back off, now it's thicker. We want to set the detail level to medium, so we're going to set this to medium. We're going to change the wall orientation if necessary, so if it came in backwards, you want to make sure that your arrow's outside. We viewed it in thin lines to see that wall material, and now we want to change the second floor wall to 5/8 gyp 5.5 ST5 to clap. So if we hit View 3D, we've got that purple wall there. If I select this and all of the other levels that are here, I'm kind of just selecting this edge wall. I can change this to be that Gallatin 5/8 stucco, and now it's all purple on that outside wall. What we want to do is put the floor on the second level. So we're going to go to floor plan level 2. Once we're on floor plan level 2, you'll notice that we can see level 1 stuff on the level 2 floor below. We actually can't right now because in a previous demo, we turned off our underlay base range. So if we set our underlay to level 1, now I can see it. So the underlay is important because when I'm drawing a floor, I can draw it to see what's below. So I can have a better understanding of what's below. We're going to turn it back to none for now, and we're going to just draw a floor in place, architectural, and we're going to select walls. Right now, notice that it's defaulting to that wall center line. That's fine for now. That's selected correctly to that stud, so we're going to just stick with that for now. Notice that everything's drawn in there. This one we'll go ahead and just put on the back just because I don't want to see it on the exterior. So that's drawn. We want to change this to a 10-inch wood deck. So we're going to 10-inch wood finish. Lines make floor inside walls. So one thing we want to do is we've picked walls with this, but we want to move to lines. So what ends up happening is when you draw with lines, you can actually draw the floor much like the ceiling any way you want. So I could just draw a line across. I could make a funky diamond shape or something, or triangular shape, and then I could trim it, hit finish, and now you'll notice that it's there. Would you like walls to go up to the floor's level to attach to its bottoms? If I hit yes, what's going to happen is I'm going to get errors. And the reason for that is it's going to pull a bunch of walls to fit to that layer. So I'm going to cancel that. When I cancel it, it defaults to that no. So it's important to know to always hit no when you're drawing those floors. Now, when I view this in 3D, the floor is in there. You can see it through the second floor. And if I rotate up and down, you can see it there. And you'll notice that similarly to the ceiling, we were able to get it to appear how we wanted. I'm going to edit this boundary and trim it back. And then I'll just delete these out because I want it to look correct. I can actually hit AL and align to the face of this wall. So I'm just tabbing through this wall and aligning that to it. So sometimes you'll get an error like that. When you get an error like that, don't freak out. Don't panic. Just read what's going on. It's not going to let me do it. So if I go to level 2 and then I hit align and I align from here to here, we're still getting the same error. What I believe it is this little excess piece of line work. So if I trim that here, the other problem is when I align from here to here, AL from where I want to go from where I was, it's disconnecting this line here. So what I could do is just drag this down. I actually can't drag it down. I have to delete it. What I'd have to do is either pick the walls or draw where I want those walls to be. So I'm just strictly drawing the profile. I'm not freaking out. I'm just kind of doing a workaround. I'm going to hit TR to trim these. Once those are in, I'll hit finish, no, and now it's in there. So we have a complete second floor in this building. One thing to note is this interior wall's protruding through the floor, so you can actually attach it to the floor, or you can assign, for some reason, let's go to a section, level 1, cut through. You'll notice in the section it's doing the same thing. So we'll attach to the floor from the section, and now it's attached to the bottom of that floor. So when I go back to 3D, I'm not going to have that funky wall running through it. So it's important to understand that. You can use the align command to make things more accurate. However, if things aren't drawn correctly, you will see errors like what you had just seen. We do see the pattern, so if I go to level 1, you can see the pattern in there, or level 2. In this particular case, the pattern is shown. It just took a second to reload there. You may have to set the scale of level 2 to a 1/4 inch rather than an 1/8 inch to see it a little bit better, depending on where you're at, and to see section 4. Now, if we go to section 4, we can go to the building section, which is this one, section 4. You'll notice that the walls are going in through the walls here, or the floor is going in through the walls here. I believe we can join these, so we could actually join the floor to the walls, and it'll clear that up. Join, and we can join, and we can actually join these, and you'll notice that that line goes away. So that's something important to note. If I rotate around, everything looks pretty good. Got quite a big building going on. We do see the floors. We've seen the interior wall not stopping at the floor, so we attached that correctly. We're now going to explain the 2D overlay of 3D geometry and the related size to how that affects file size. So what can end up happening is inside of your views, depending on what your settings are set to, when I'm placing furniture, such as, let's pick a desk or a sofa, 72-inch sofa, this is 3D geometry being illustrated. I could have 2D geometry illustrated rather than this. And that's going to reduce your file size, but you have to note that if you want a 3D version of it, you should be using a 3D version of that object. So the more you create in 3D, the less overlay you have to create in 2D. And number two, for hints, you will have to make decisions on what to create in 3D and when creating in 3D if it's just too time consuming and not cost effective. That's the most critical part of Revit, is understanding what to model versus what not to model. Your 2D overlay geometry will not show in other views, i.e. the 3D model. So that's the end of lecture 13. So we're going to file, save as, project, Revit demo 13. My numlocks is off, so make sure your number lock is on. 13, save, and I will see you in the next lecture.